Hey everybody, I just wanted to start with a disclaimer about today's vocab. What we're about to learn isn't universally accepted, but it does seem to be where academia is shifting. There's a lot of evolving terminology over the past few decades, and some people are quicker to embrace it, some aren't. I'm just going to be upfront. The reason why we're choosing this particular one is it does seem to be where academia is shifting and what will be universal in the next few years or decades. And also, it's the most inclusive. We'll have students that fit in one or many of these categories, and we're going to give us a framework that is accepting to all of those students. If you'd like to know more about the discussions around certain terminology, I would be more than happy to dive deep. Just come see me in seminar. So the first two terms are ones that we want to understand the difference of. And that first term is sex, which is the biological differences between male and females. And the most obvious is typically a sexual organ, but it's not just that. It's also your hormones, your genetics, and that makes up your sex. You'll also hear it known as your biological sex. And according to many, that can be different than your gender, which are socially constructed norms on how someone, quote unquote, should behave. Remember, socially constructed means that people created it, and it's not the way the world 100% should be. We didn't just find these gender norms, we helped create them ourselves. And that's things like what guys are more interested in versus what girls are more interested in. And it doesn't mean all gender norms are wrong. It's just important of knowing that they were socially constructed. So if there are any we don't like, why not change them? And another disclaimer, it's okay to be confused. It's okay to be unsure. It's even okay to disagree about some of these terms. But it's not okay to treat someone poorly because of your differences in understanding. We have to treat everybody with respect, no matter where they fall on any of these spectrums. And so let's learn about different types of gender. There's lots of different types, and here's just 5 of them. The first is cisgender, and that means their gender matches their sex. The societal norms that they fit in and feel comfortable with are the norms that society typically attributes to their sex. So that means someone who's born biologically a female wants to act in the ways that society thinks a female should act and dress that way. Where a transgender is someone who has switched from the gender identity that matches their sex, and now they're something different. This is typically a permanent thing. Where a gender fluid person is someone who goes back and forth between their gender expressions. Someone who identifies as non-binary is someone whose gender expression doesn't fit traditional male or female categories. Maybe the way they like to dress is a little bit more female, but their interests and some of their behaviors are more traditional male gender roles. And intersex is someone who is born with a combination of male or female body parts or genetics. And as I said at the top, these are not the only categories, and people don't always remain in one category forever. So we've already touched upon gender norms, but I wanted to give you a definition so everyone could write that down in their notes. And gender norms are expected behaviors and roles that society expects a man or a woman to exhibit. Men are aggressive and women are more passive or non-aggressive. Men are typically seen as the breadwinner, the independent people who make the money, where women are more dependent on their man. I'm not saying that's the way every guy is and every girl is, or that's the way it should be. Those are just traditional gender stereotypes that we see in our country, and some of them are evolving and changing. The gender stereotypes in 2020 aren't exactly the same stereotypes that we had in 1820. And with gender roles comes different jobs, different careers, different pay. And because of that, women are paid a lot less than men. And it takes women about 460 days to earn the amount of money a man makes in 365 days. And so that's for a number of things. Typically in the past, it was more so for men just getting paid more to do the same job. And that's part of it, though. A lot of that's gone away. Now it's more the industries men are going into versus the industries women are going into. You got to ask yourself, what is it about society that's leading men to certain jobs and women to others? So in 2020, Equal Pay Day was March 31st, which is slightly better than 2019, where Equal Pay Day was April 2nd. Next class, we're going to see how different races have different equal pay days, but we'll break that down next class. Now let's move on to sexuality, which is something that might be a little bit uncomfortable to talk about, class, because maybe outside of health class you haven't really talked about it in school. But we've seen a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding, and even, bullying and discrimination against people for their sexual preferences. So it's important we understand that. It's a big part of a lot of people's identity, even if you don't realize it. And for the people who don't think their sexuality is going to be a big part of their identity, think about how fortunate you are. Think about what a privilege that is, that you don't have to worry about how society or how your family is going to accept the person you love, as long as, they're the right gender, quote unquote, the right gender. And so sexuality is a person's feelings, thoughts, and attractions to certain categories of people. And so just like gender, there's many, many different types of sexuality. We're going to go over just 5 of them. The first is asexual. And this is someone who's just not sexually attracted to others. They just don't really see what the big deal is. Then we have a bisexual, who is someone who's attracted to men and women. The gender of a person doesn't really have an effect on whether or not a bisexual person sees them as attractive. A heterosexual is someone who's attracted to the opposite gender. You may have heard this term straight, which kind of implies that it's the normal thing. So heterosexual is a preferred term. And think about the prefix hetero, which means different. It means you're sexually attracted to a different gender than your own. As opposed to homosexual, homo meaning same, where they are sexually attracted to someone of the same gender. And our 5th term that we'll learn about sexuality is pansexual. And that's someone sexually attracted to people, regardless of their gender. Now you might see some similarities with bisexual, and that's definitely true. But a bisexual person is someone attracted to men and women, where a pansexual person might include someone who's non-binary or gender fluid. Once again, these are not the only categories, and people don't always remain in one category forever. There's different scientific, sociological, and religious reasons and theories for why people are the way they are. We just don't have time to get into all of that. But again, if you want to know more, just come talk to me in seminar and we'll dive deep into it. And these are the notes for today. Make sure you've documented your knowledge and you submit it to Gender and Sexuality on Schoology. I'll see you back in class.